2023 has not been a good year for Steven Crowder. Since signing a deal with Rumble back in March of 2023, his Rumble views had fallen considerably, dropping from averaging over 2 million views per video to less than 1 million. Crowder's reputation has taken a beating online. In the beginning of the year, there was a failed contract negotiation with the Daily Wire that went public, and it was revealed that he had made secret recordings of his conversation with Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring. Crowder was refusing a contract worth $50 million to produce his show for 4 years.
This is the minimum number that we thought would get the conversation started with Steven. $50 million for the initial term.
All of that happened before the Rumble deal, though, so it's less likely that it had an impact on his viewership than what came next. In the midst of that whole contract controversy, it was revealed that Steven Crowder was going through a messy divorce, and had been since 2021. And soon after, a video of him being verbally abusive to his wife surfaced online.
He's sick.
Watch it.
He's sick.
Watch it. Watch it.
In addition to that footage, many former staffers at Crowder's show went public with stories of behind-the-scenes tirades coming from Crowder and a tendency he had to expose his genitals to his coworkers. Even taking all those controversies to account, though, it seems a bit strange that Crowder's views would drop so dramatically. I thought it might help to take a wider look at his numbers to get a better sense of his channel's health. So that's what I did. I looked at the views for Crowder's channels on YouTube and Rumble and counted them up over the last year. In this graph here, you can see Crowder's YouTube views are in red, while his Rumble views are in green. The big change you'll notice is that Crowder goes from getting most of his views from YouTube to Rumble as soon as he signs a deal with them. It's reasonable to assume most of his audience migrated over to that platform as he was constantly pushing Rumble in his videos and on social media. Still, that jump is really big. Crowder hadn't cracked 2 million views in a while on YouTube, and suddenly he's soaring past that on Rumble, though it's possible as explained by Rumble promoting his content. It is a bit weird though, considering Steven Crowder had taken a lot of time off, and that's usually really dangerous for a channel's health. One other strange difference between his YouTube channel is that his engagement is significantly lower on Rumble. Looking at a sample of roughly 6 months, the comparison of views to comments and likes or dislikes is wildly different. On YouTube, roughly 1.2% of views translate to comments. That is, a viewer has a 1.2% chance of leaving a comment every time they watch one of his videos. On Rumble, that number is significantly less at 0.2%. There's also a big disparity between likes and dislikes. There's a 7% chance of a viewer on YouTube rating a video versus a 1.2% chance on Rumble. These numbers aren't just true for Crowder, though. Using a sample of 2 weeks for Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool's channels, I found they had similar issues. It seems that users on Rumble are just not interested in leaving comments or liking or disliking videos. What makes it even stranger is that if Crowder's audience is migrating from YouTube to Rumble, one wonders why this audience suddenly decided they no longer have any interest in leaving comments or rating videos. Maybe people just don't want to make Rumble accounts, and almost everyone has a Google account. All of this is just generally suspicious, and I probably wouldn't even be including it in this video if not for something else I found. Steven Crowder typically releases 4 shows a week, scheduled for 10 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Time. He's usually late to start, sometimes taking 10 minutes or so to begin the stream. This will be an important detail later on. While researching this video, I decided randomly to watch Steven Crowder's live stream of the GOP primary debate. So when I tuned in early to make sure I caught the beginning, I noticed something a bit strange. Before the stream starts, there's this little video that lasts a couple of seconds that plays on a loop. It lets you know that the stream will be starting soon. You can see people in the chat trying to get racial slurs past the filter and a few early ratings going in. This is pretty much how YouTube streams work as well, minus the little video. When I tuned into this primary debate stream, though, what caught me off guard is that in the description box, you'll notice that there is a view count for this stream. And in this footage here I captured, you'll see it currently was sitting at 138,000. I refreshed the page just to double check that the stream hadn't actually started, and you can see there that it's saying that the viewers are still waiting for it to start, and obviously a refresh. And that 138,000 view figure just stayed there, all with 27,000 people waiting for the stream to start. So this raises an important question: where did these views come from? And why are they being counted under this video before the stream even begins? Now, for those who don't know, Rumble works a lot like YouTube in that the views you see under a video aren't updated in real time. It usually takes a few minutes to see each increase. And when you look at that view count, it's really more of a snapshot in time from when there were a certain number of people who have viewed a video. The number is almost always higher when you look at it in the back end. It can be off by thousands or tens of thousands sometimes, particularly for a new video. So we shouldn't understand, for instance, this debate stream as getting 138,000 views early. We should understand it as getting 138,000 views early at least, because there were several minutes after this stat was provided that views were likely still being counted and added to the total. I was curious to see if this was a pattern, so I checked out Steven Crowder's streams throughout the week, and this finding repeated itself every time. Sometimes it was just a few thousand views, other times it was tens of thousands. It's impossible to say how many views are being added here because the numbers would appear about 15 minutes before a stream would begin in some cases, and they often wouldn't get updated until 10 to 15 minutes after the stream started. I decided to run this same test on a stream for Dan Bongino where, like Crowder, he had about 20,000 views counted before his stream began. And again, this one is also probably being undercounted. Whatever is going on in the back end, I'm pretty confident in saying that Crowder's live stream view counts and possibly other streamers on Rumble are being boosted by counting views of people waiting for the stream to start. That was my hypothesis anyway, so I decided to test it out and maybe get a better idea of how overcounted these views really are. I created an account on Rumble, and after getting some followers so I would be allowed to stream, I ran my test. When setting up a stream, Rumble gives you the option of adding your own custom video so your audience has something short to watch while waiting for the stream to start. I didn't have a ton of short videos on hand, so I just grabbed this 8-second one.
It tastes of macam.
I started the stream and left it unlisted and opened a second browser to watch it, so there was only ever one viewer viewing the stream. The preview video autoplayed as soon as I opened the page and looped for the whole hour. While watching, I refreshed a few times, waiting for that view stat to pop up, and eventually it did, but the only number I saw was 13 views. A strange number to get with only one viewer watching a clip that replayed itself for about roughly 450 times over the course of an hour. Of course, like I said earlier, this early stat should be considered a moment in time and not something that reflects a real-time count of views. After the hour was up, I started the stream and immediately ended it. If any other views were counted for the stream after it actually began, it was probably just one view for that stream starting up. I waited for the view count to update in the back end, giving it as much time as possible to make sure all the views were counted for, and the final view count for this video was not 13 views, but 226 views, all from one person who tuned in an hour before the stream began, significantly higher than that first set of 13 views. This works out to approximately 50% of the preview video loops being counted as views. I repeated that test with a stream that only ran for 30 minutes, and that one ended up with 114 views, which is roughly half, so the finding seems pretty consistent. I also tried running a stream without the preview video. Turns out one gets automatically generated and autoplays for any viewers, so it looks like any stream that's scheduled for the future is going to have one of these videos. A little after scheduling this particular test though, I noticed that automatically generated video was playing, so I paused it and let the stream run for 30 minutes without any video loops, aside from the first few that might have snuck through before I paused the video. The final view count for this stream was 5. I wanted to run another test, and for this one, I would let the default video, which lasts about 15 seconds, play for 30 minutes instead of my 8-second clip. The result for this one was 120 views, which was kind of strange because that's more views than the 8-second clip. If we do some math here, we see that the 15-second video can be played 120 times within 30 minutes. And with that bit of information, everything started coming together in my mind. The discrepancy between using an 8-second video and a 15-second one is only a few views, which suggests to me that what's being counted here is not the number of loops, but how long someone is watching. But how long someone is watching is not entirely disconnected from the fact that these videos are looping. On YouTube, you need to watch a video for 30 seconds for it to count as a view. On Rumble, it appears to be 15 seconds. But on YouTube, at least, once you start watching a video after 30 seconds, no matter how long that video is, it only gets counted as one view unless you happen to close the video and start watching it again at a later time. Since Rumble is looping the video in these pre-stream sections though, every time the loop repeats, it resets whether or not a view is going to be counted for this video. So every 15 seconds, a video flips over and gets counted as a new view. In fact, that would explain why using an 8-second video would mean the view count is slightly lower, because the counter is being reset every 16 seconds instead of 15. In other words, it's getting reset every other loop. But I wanted to run one more test just to be certain. This time I used a preview video that was 1 minute in length. So every time it ran, it would meet that 15-second threshold, but then would go on for another 45 seconds before looping. And I assumed that's when another play would be counted. If my theory held true, that would mean that this video would get roughly 30 views if I let it run for 30 minutes. So that's how long I let it run for. The final total for this experiment? 32 views. I think it's safe to say that Rumble counts a view every 15 seconds and that the counter gets reset every time a loop completes. And isn't it just a darn coincidence that the default length of time for a generated video on Rumble to run is exactly 15 seconds? Almost like they plan to inflate their view numbers using these little preview videos. I am making a few assumptions here. For example, that Rumble treats all its channels equally. And when you consider that the average viewer isn't likely to turn up 1 hour or 30 minutes before a stream start, although some certainly do, so it's probably not fair to assume that every early viewer is adding 100 views to each video. Although you should also consider that Steven Crowder usually starts his streams late, so I'm sure he's getting a healthy injection of views into all of his videos. One big caveat I'd like to mention is that my tests probably weren't representative in how some people tune into live streams. When I was running these tests, I would open a browser window and just let it sit there. So I ran a few tests where I simulated more realistic behavior. Instead of just letting the stream sit there, letting the video loop nonstop, I tried opening a new tab, minimizing the window, and just doing stuff to generally not look at the stream. Something a person might do if a stream hasn't actually started yet. Even while doing that, I was still getting plenty of views. These loops are still running even when you have a window minimized. Here are a few examples of tests where I did my best to ignore the window where the stream was running, and I was still getting views when really I should have been getting 0. My favorite is this one right here where I got 9 views. I got this by pasting the stream URL into a fresh new tab, pressing enter, and then immediately going into a new tab and then minimizing the whole window. And when it came time for the stream to actually start, I closed the whole window, waited 15 seconds, and then started the stream. At no point was I looking at this stream or even the preview video, but I still somehow ended up with 9 views. It's impossible to tell how many viewers are doing what I was doing in these tests and completely ignoring the window or stream that they have the little preview video open in. But even if they're doing that, they're still contributing to views. And when you consider that there are viewers there who do just leave it open and mess around in the chat, or maybe go somewhere to get a meal, or maybe they have it open in another monitor, they're contributing even more. And if you doubt that that's happening, the early stats that drop before the streams begin verify that to some degree, some of the viewers are doing this. When Steven Crowder has more than 4,000 people waiting for a stream, some percentage of them are waiting with that tab open in front of them, contributing dozens of views to that counter. One can only guess at how many people are tuning in either on time or early and letting that preview video loop in the background while they wait for the stream to start. But regardless, I think this is strong evidence that Crowder's view numbers, likely along with other people streaming on Rumble, are being inflated. With that in mind, Crowder's Rumble views make a little more sense. It's not that he's massively more popular there, but rather a bunch of extra views are padding his numbers overall. It would also explain, at least in part, why engagement is lower than on YouTube. There were other things that made me scratch my head a little while I was watching, but none of it that I could really carefully say was evidence of fraud the way I'm pretty sure this early view count is. Also, just as a little extra, I was curious to see how Rumble was doing as a platform financially. Their latest earnings report just came out in August, covering its second quarter of 2023, and it doesn't really paint the rosiest of pictures. While revenue is roughly 5.5 times higher from where it was last year, expenses have gone up by 6.5 times as much. They lost nearly $29.4 million in the last quarter, and they've lost $58.1 million in the last 6 months. At some point, they probably need to figure out how to turn a profit, but right now they're still very much in the red. It does make one wonder how much longer this platform can keep losing money before investors lose faith. Originally, this was going to be part of a much longer video, but this section in particular really stood out on its own and didn't fit in with the bigger piece, so that's why it's being presented in a video that's much shorter than the usual stuff you see on my channel. That larger video will be about the early days of Steven Crowder's career, including the time he got punched in the face by a union worker, and will be on my channel sometime next week. But if you want to watch it right now, you can become a patron, like all the fine names you see here, and get access to it immediately. Unless this is the future and you can just watch it whenever you want. Becoming a patron or channel member also gives you access to early videos in the future. It also helps support my work so I can keep bringing you videos like this one and other great stuff. You can also leave a comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thank you all so much for watching.